Council chambers, a call to order and roll call, please.
Here.
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 Here. Here. Here. Here.
We have a quorum. The first item on the agenda is property valuations overview. We kindly welcome Heather Jacobson from the Ottawa County, who's an assessor, who's going to tell us the magic formula to unravel. So when you've figured this out, you'll be able to figure out how aeroplane tickets are priced.
Good morning.
Because the two have a lot in common.
Good morning. Thank you for having me this morning. So I'm just here to give a basic overview of kind of how we do our job, how we come up with the property values that people pay taxes on, because that's really kind of what people focus on. So my name is Heather Jacobson. I'm the Ottawa County Assessor. I've been there about 14 years. So I'm not going to speak about specific properties, just a general overview of what we do. And I think you guys all have received this handout that Lynn has up. We sent this out last year, so the dates are a little bit a year old, I guess. And it says, what is the green paper? And a lot of what I'm going to say is summed up in this paper as well. For the 2026 assessment that the notices will be coming out, it'll be green. They won't be blue this year, they'll be green. So you can just scratch that out. We use Minnesota statute chapter 273 is the statute that mostly applies to the job that we do. The purpose of what we do is to ensure fair and equitable property values throughout the county. We want to be compliant with the state laws and local laws, of course. We want to be accurate and transparent. We value all property in the county, so real property, personal property, exempt property, and then state assessed property. The Minnesota Department of Revenue is who also guides us, gives us our ratios. They also analyze the market, and they're in charge of the State Board of Equalization, telling us that we have to have our sales ratios between 90 and 105%, and I'll get more into that in a little bit. We're licensed by the Minnesota Board of Assessors, and day one, we have staff that operate as a provisional appraiser, and then it takes a minimum of 3 years to attain the required license. That's an accredited Minnesota assessor. Ottawa County is a true county, considered true county. So all of our appraisers are Ottawa County employees. We don't have any local local assessors, which some of our neighboring counties still have. Excuse me. So we use a mass appraisal system, which is different than fee appraisal. So fee appraisal, you can choose one or two comps that they might have sold yesterday. In mass appraisal, we are looking at a large group of properties, so everything in the county simultaneously, so we can be fair and equitable. I try not to use fair because that's kind of a relative term, but equitable, we want to treat you just like your neighbors. So it is different than what a fee appraisal is, and they're both opinions of value. So we're statutorily required to view 1/5 of each jurisdiction every year. So we have a quintile plan. So throughout the whole county, Fergus Falls has, this is the year, quintile 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to visit at least 20% of every city or township every year. So we'll be physically viewing your property at least once every 5 years. More if you're doing any construction or demolition or anything like that, if we have any other reason to visit. We have roughly 66,000 parcels, very diverse and dynamic county, and I learned that when I stepped into this role. Much more how dynamic and diverse our county is. We have kind of a little bit of everything, so we're lucky that way. It's never a dull moment in Ottawa County, for sure, at our office. So with the 66,000 parcels, each of our appraisers has about 6,000 parcels annually. and they're visiting 20% of those. So in the spring, when we begin our quintile work, we send out postcards to the whole area that we're going to be working, because we just don't know how long is it going to take to get through Ward 1 of Fergus. How long is it going to take? So we send those postcards out to notify the residents that we're going to be there. We don't know when, and they can sure call and make appointments. So we always appreciate when people call us and we can gather data. A lot of times we're there and people don't even know we've been there. So if we have questions, we leave tags on the doors. We try to contact the owners. We work with the city staff to receive permits. And we use all of the data to ultimately, we want to have accurate data. So we're going to use all the tools at our resources that we have. Factors that affect value, you probably are all very well aware of. Location, so whether you're in town, whether you're out on Otter Tail Lake, that all affects your value. The characteristics of the buildings on the property, if it's commercial, if it's a cabin, they're all going to have their own they're going to be treated according to what they are. The year, the story height, all the characteristics, and then the land and the building value is how we get that estimated market value. And that is going to change with the market. So sales are what determine our values. So obviously the characteristics of your property, they all go in a bucket, and then we use sales to determine if they need to increase or if they need to decrease or if they need to stay the same. We had if you own a property, you know that after COVID 2020, we had a tremendous boom in our county. Values skyrocketed. We had hundreds of appeals. Things have leveled out since then, but there's always some market changes, and that's because of sales. And hopefully we don't ever have a year like that again. That was a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow. But it is the market, and we have to follow the market. And then there's economic factors. So obviously the economy affects all of us differently. Interest rates when you're buying a house can, definitely impact, buyers. And then also kind of relating back to the 2020, we have still seen quite a few cash buyers, so they're not as as rate sensitive. So those higher end homes are actually a lot of the time where we see the cash purchases. So they're not as impacted by the outside factors. Just a quick timeline. So our typical year, end of May or early June, we'll start that quintile. So we'll start our field work. We want to be out when it's nice out, of course. Nobody wants to be out when it's 40 below. And we have been. So we begin our work in May or June. That's kind of the start of our year. So this year, it'll be the start of the 2027 assessment. We're finishing right now the 2026 assessment. So we'd be out, and then October, we're usually visiting resorts, personal property. November, December, new construction. So any project that was under construction this year, we'd be visiting, because we're only going to value improvements that are at the stage of completion that they're at. So if you have a shell, we're only going to value a shell. We're not going to, you don't have the full value of your structure until it is actually completed, and then you might not even pay taxes on that for 2 years after. Excuse me. And then January through March, so right now is kind of our busy time. We're trying to wrap up all the data that we've collected through the summer and the fall and early winter. We're inputting that. We're analyzing the what did our sales do. Appraisers are making sure the data is accurate so we can ultimately come up with what our value is going to do this year. And then we'll get ready and send those valuation notices and then start our local boards of appeal. You guys have a local board meeting. It is April, it's on here somewhere. I'll get to it. It's in here somewhere. So the local board of appeals, so then we'll start with the phone calls. We'll go out and visit property, update make any changes, make any recommendations at those board meetings. And then we'll start prepping for the next assessment, which will begin again, like I said, in May. So the biggest factor on values is sales. And I know I've said that a few times, but sales are what drive values. So the Department of Revenue has a requirement that our median sale has to be within 90 to 105%. So that's not all sales in one bucket. We have different property types. There's ag, residential, commercial, industrial, and then a couple of little subsets of that. So the sales that we'll use for this 2026 assessment are from October 1st of 2024 through September of 2025. So the sales that have been coming in since October 1st this year are already for next year. So the sales that we use can be old. They can be 18 months or so old. Again, different than fee appraising, where you can use something that sold yesterday. So our value is set as of January 2nd. So using all that data, all that sales data, January 2nd is when we cut things off to come up with that value for the assessment, using all of that information. Excuse me. The sales we use have to be qualified. So the Department of Revenue has those buckets. Relative sales would not be qualified. Foreclosures, any special financing or 0% financing. There's quite a few. There's 33 reject codes that when we'll call and verify a sale to determine if it's a sale that we can use for our study, or if it's not, then it's rejected. And all of them are done through ECRV, Electronic Certificate of Real Estate Value. Whenever you buy a property, if you're familiar with that. I'm always reviewing ECRVs, and then we submit them to the Department of Revenue, and that data is what's used to come up with those our required ratios to be that 90 to 105%, and it's the median. It's not the average. It's the median. When we don't have a lot of sales in any jurisdiction, we'll look back 5 years, and we'll use market indicators of what's happening. Just because maybe Paddock Township didn't have 5 sales in a specific category, we'll look around the rest of the county and the surrounding areas to see what's the market doing. And those, we adjust for location, just like I had mentioned earlier, if that's what the sales are telling us. So how this relates to taxes, and you're probably well aware of that. It's a lot of what's in this, or part of it is in this handout too. Taxes. We don't set the taxes. The budgets set the taxes, and again, you're all well aware of budgets. So sales determine values. Your value and classification determines your share of that tax budget. So the city of Fergus, in Fergus, it's going to be the city, the county. We don't have a hospital district, any schools or any other jurisdictions that have a budget that's levied. Your value is your share of that pie. That's kind of helpful for people to kind of wrap their heads around. You know, we hear a lot of, the county needs more money. You're going to raise my value. And that isn't true at all. We're following the market. Your value can go up and your taxes can go down, or vice versa. So it all ties back to the budget. So we try to be transparent. We try to treat people the same, or parcels the same. You should not be valued for something your neighbors, if it's there, you should be treated equally. Again, we don't set the tax bills, set by the different jurisdictions, and then that's their share of the budget. And then the classification, of course. Commercial pays a higher tax rate than a regular residential homesteaded property. So just kind of to wrap it all up, again, right now we're just finalizing the 2026 assessment. I don't see any tremendous increases this year. Commercial's going to see some increases this year. Our ratio was low, so I'm not going to throw out any numbers because I don't know what they'll end up being in the end. But the Fergus Local Board meeting is April 30th. We have, throughout the county, we have 31 jurisdictions that have local board meetings and 53 open book. So the difference between a local board and an open book is the local board is an actual township or city meeting where petitioners would ideally call us ahead of time. We'd be able to view the property, but they can show up to that meeting and appeal. The board decides what action would be taken, if any, and then after that date, they cannot appeal. So if they haven't appealed at the time of the local board, they cannot appeal. So that's the big difference with the open book. With the open book jurisdictions, there is no actual meeting. We have a date on the valuation notice that's set. That just means we're in the office that day. We're going to be there if anybody wants to come in, but they can call anytime. They can set up a meeting anytime. They can appeal all the way up to county board. So some of the smaller jurisdictions have started to transition to the open book just for that. Otter Tail County has a lot of snowbirds. People feel like they can't appeal because they're in Arizona or Florida, and they can. They can make a phone call. As long as they've appealed, then they still keep the door open to appeal to the County Board of Equalization, which is June 15th. If you ever have questions about your individual properties or somebody's property, give our office a call. There is a number. Our number is right on this sheet. It's, I think, the second page, bottom left-hand corner. We have 11 staff appraisers. They're all responsible for their areas, so that's a good place to start. You can always call me, too, but they are familiar with their areas, and if they're newer, then they'll get familiar with their areas. So you can certainly call us anytime. We always like to make sure our data is accurate. Again, we don't always get inside properties, so one final note, I guess, going back to the local boards, it's not a board of reduction, it's a board of appeal. Sometimes your value goes up, sometimes it goes down. We hear that people say, if I appeal, it's just going to go up. It can happen, but we want our data to be accurate. So just to keep that in mind, and I know most of you are probably trained, have taken the training through the Department of Revenue. So just, again, to wrap this up, feel free to call us anytime, and thank you for having us. I'm the only one here, so thank you for having me. Any questions, or do I take questions, or I don't know what you have?
Does anybody have any questions of Heather? Mike?
No, Your Honor, I appreciate it. And I'm not an expert by any means, and it actually is very complex in what you're looking at. But I was sitting here thinking, you started talking about ratios and different percentages and different things like that. We're a county that has extensively high lake properties, but then we have the city of Fergus Falls. Does that influence any of our property values here in the city of Fergus Falls with all of the lakeshore compared to like the county of Wilkin County, which is much different?
So, yes and no. So, no, your values are set for Fergus. When we're looking at Fergus, that's its own neighborhood, its own area. So, we're not comparing Fergus values to Otter Tail Lake. Do those, they pay a big share of the tax burden because we have all that tax capacity, which is the county, and obviously not the city. So, yes and no, but I would say no because we're just looking at Fergus Falls. Just like Perham, we look at each area on its own, each township on its own, residential versus commercial. So the sales used to determine the Fergus Falls city values are only the Fergus Falls city sales because we always have enough. It kind of relates to one comment that we hear is, my neighbor built this giant house and that's going to drive my values up. It doesn't until it sells. So if it sells and we're right in line, our value is within that 90 to 105%, there's no change. But one sale doesn't make or break the market. That's why we use the median.
Scott?
One question about you getting in, nobody wants to let you guys inside your house. And so would you explain what the reason you want to go inside the house and what I know the reason, I'm asking the question.
Yeah, yep, nope, for accuracy, we want to make sure that we're not overvaluing or undervaluing your property. A lot of times the inside matches the outside, but not always. There could be some condition issues on the inside, and it's just for accuracy. We don't need to poke around in your closets in your bedrooms. If you let us in, we just want to see, is the basement finished? What's is it custom? Is it average? Is there deferred maintenance where we might need to take some extra obsolescence off?
So are all the counties the same? Because I have I won't tell you, we're a different county. They came and we were building, and they've never been back to look inside. They said, we don't care what's inside, we just want to know how many bedrooms, bathrooms. You could have gold-plated fireplace for all they care.
Yeah.
But it seems like Ottertail County wants to see if you have a gold-plated one or not, or what, I mean, I'm going extreme, but it's like they didn't want to see, they could care less about, they just want to know square footage and what I had inside for bedrooms, bathrooms, and stuff like that. So
Yep,
what's
and-
the difference?
We wouldn't count, so Ottertail County, I think as long as we have our ultimate value is what matters, and how we get there is different per county. Overall, it's pretty similar. We don't count bedrooms, we measure the exterior of the house, and we use that for our square footage. And then
And that's what they did, yeah.
Yep. We would want to know how many bathrooms you have, and if we don't get inside, we have to either assume and make a judgment call. But to get in, we don't get in very many. If we get in 10% on a summer day when people are home, it's just for accuracy. We want to make sure that we grade it correctly, that we know how many fireplaces you have. If the basement is, a 1985 paneled, rec room, or if it's gold plated.
So that, I don't understand the difference. That's what I guess I'm getting at. Why would it be different if the inside is done differently versus another county versus our county? That's kind of where I'm at. So that's why.
How
people
they
ask the
do
question.
things, I guess how are they coming up with that ultimate value? They're making a lot more assumptions possibly than we are
I don't know.
and we use the Vanguard CAMA system, so I don't know what system they use, but all of those, again, we're not fee appraisers, so we don't need every little nitty gritty. So we're probably right in the middle of there on some of that stuff, but
Okay.
it's for consistency.
So if you're out there and you're knocking on doors, does a resident have to let them in, or can they deny entry?
They can deny entry. If you want to appeal and you deny entry, then we can't make any changes.
Yeah.
We just have to make those
But
assumptions.
if you're just on one of your routine kind of
Yep.
appraisal,
Yep,
and you knock on the door and
yep,
say,
yep. They do not have to let us in. We are allowed to trespass. There is a statute allowing trespass. We're not out to make people
No.
angry or feel like we're infringing on their privacy, of course, but in order to do our jobs, we have to trespass sometimes. But yeah, if they deny us entry, that's up to them, but we have to make assumptions. And we're not going to be punitive and say, well, then you've got to really, everything inside is gold plated. We have to make assumptions from the exterior, so.
Al, you have a question?
First of all, Heather, thanks for coming. And you're at a disadvantage today because I know your father. So, sorry about that. Anyway, what kind of Scott was talking about, a little bit different in one county from the other, is that still fall within what you're told to by the state? Or how is that even?
Sure.
And then also too, I'd like to make a mention, as far as you had mentioned that budgets set taxes. It would have been nice to have maybe a county commissioner here too today. We could have visited about that. So I feel bad that you're alone. It'd been nice to have, the Fergus county commissioner here too, so.
Yep.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So your first question, yes, the Department of Revenue does not tell us how to get our values. They just tell us where our values have to be. So if they're not looking inside, and I know like I believe Hennepin County does desktop appraisals, so they, just for safety and other reasons, they're doing most of it from their desk. They're not walking like we are. And I feel very strongly that you can tell a lot more about a property when you're there, as opposed to look at realtor photos. You might look at a house and it looks fantastic online, and you get there and it's a different situation. So they don't tell us how to get there. Physically viewing is, I think, a much more accurate way of coming up with that data. And again, why we do things different than whichever other county. There's probably a lot of other things we could compare and see what we do the same, what we do different. But ultimately, are our values accurate?
I get, what brought that question on too is not only what Scott said, was what has been said in the past by some of the commissioners that, hey, we have to do what the state says, and then it's, okay, well, we never had an explanation on certain things. And so kind of hypersensitive to that comment, we're told by the state, well, then I'm thinking, well, why are we voting for different people to do things? So
Sure.
that's where I'm at with that. Thank you.
Yep. And I believe the Fergus commissioner is watching.
Yep, good.
Mark, you got a question?
Heather, it's nice to see you.
Nice to meet
had
you in
a lot of
person.
Conversation, thank you. I'm in Capone's. I know your dad too. So
Well, he's a gravedigger, just for the record here. There's a connection.
we can hide things.
I did not say that.
I appreciate. I've been in the real estate business trying to study the real estate valuations in Minnesota forever, and it does not make sense to a normal person. One county does it this way, the other county does it that way. Sometimes you have to be in, sometimes you don't. One time it's on the square foot, how many bathrooms, how many bedrooms, how many fireplaces. I'm going to dig in a little deeper. The city is currently involved with some transactions on a commercial level. Someone buys a piece of property for $1 million. How does the county make the determination of what the dirt's worth and then what the building is worth?
Sales. So we study the sales. We don't, we have our starting land rates. So we've got the square foot rate, we've got front foot rate, per acre rate. So different parts specifically of the city are valued differently according to their location and historic sales. So it's been established way before my time. So analyzing, are we hitting those sales data? I just worked on some land right over Highway 1 where Fergus becomes Ardall Township, equalizing values because the land prices were unequal, so just kind of blending the township commercial land values because sales indicated that we were too low. And you could see the difference of what, from the city to the township, what the difference was. I don't know if that answers your question or makes sense, but by using sales analysis.
Yeah, we're getting there. If if John Doe buys a piece of property for $1 million, the transactions I've seen doesn't really say that, okay, so much is for the building, so much is for the dirt. How do you determine that? I mean,
We use the overall ratio. It's the combined because something has improved is much more valuable than the bare land. So we use bare land sales, but the department doesn't. So it's the overall ratio. So we have to analyze the sales and say, why is this property selling for so much more? Is it the land? Is it that we need to increase our land value? So there's not a calculation. There's not a 30% on the land, the rest on the improvements. So it's probably not the answer you want, but that's the truth.
if this person were to buy a piece of property and it is, let's just use an abstract number, $10 a square foot, what are you going to value that property at?
Whatever the neighborhood is valued at. And we'd react after the sale if
Yes?
if the median sale price, if the sales were telling us that we were too low, then we'd have to figure out, is it the building? Are the land values too low? Then we'd
Yeah,
have
this
to
was
adjust.
a bare piece of lot. We got a bare lot that sold for $10 a square foot
Yep.
in a commercial location.
Okay.
And unfortunately, there may not be other close empty lots.
It's going to go up and down with the rest of the parcels in Fergus or in that neighborhood.
So it's not going to be the $10 a square foot. You're going to find the, if you will, the median and evaluate it there.
Yep. So if the square foot rate goes up, that's going to go up but it's going to go for all of them. That's mass appraisal.
Yeah, because I don't see the breakdown in an actual transaction. So you're just coming up with whatever the history has in that neighborhood as to what it is, because we're evaluating, analyzing actual sales, analyzing the actual breakdown at the county level as to how much is building, how much is dirt, and other, if you will, transactions. I mean, they don't tie together at all. So that's, I appreciate it as a median. It's based on history. I've looked at other communities, and in an area they just got $9 a square foot. They just, across the board. It doesn't matter if you're on the freeway, off the freeway, 10 blocks off the freeway.
Yeah.
On residential, it maybe be helpful for the consumer, that the citizens, that, what are the things that you're looking for? It was interesting, you said you weren't concerned about bedrooms, and what is the checklist? I heard bathrooms, I heard fireplaces.
Exterior square footage and
Yep.
story height.
And that's basic. I mean, you can obtain that by drive-by. So, as you access the home, what are the key points? And it's bathrooms, fireplaces.
The year built, the condition, the characteristics of the home, if it's custom, if it's boilerplate.
Yeah, and that gets to be a little subjective, isn't it? Custom.
We have parameters for consistency because, again, this is mass appraisal. If we had the time to, we don't have the time to dedicate to finding out minute details of every single property, and we wouldn't get it. So for mass appraisal, we are gathering as much pertinent data as we can and being consistent in applying it.
Yeah, you just boil it together. Then on the commercial side, how's that building, if you really evaluate it?
Same. We have a,
Square foot, height,
yep, all the characteristics,
Age.
is it a metal post? Is it a steel frame? Is it stucco?
yeah,
we've got,
I got the construction part
Yep.
of this thing down, so. Heather, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for your presentation.
Right. I think you got one last question, and
Really
then
quick.
otherwise we'll
Last
be here
year,
all day.
I was at the Board of Equalization, and there seems to be some confusion with citizens between tax value and replacement value. Can you talk a little bit, like, people are like, well, our insurance says our house is worth this, our taxes says our house is worth this. You guys, just to clarify for people watching, don't look at replacement at all. Is
we're
that
looking
correct?
at market,
Okay.
estimated market value, which probably is a lot lower than a
I would agree
replacement
with that.
value.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
So, okay.
Yep.
So when people say, oh, someone spent this much on the house, that's irrelevant
Right.
to some extent.
Like a builder could build a
Right.
house much cheaper than I could because I'm not handy, even though my dad is.
Right, okay.
Right. Right. Thank you, Heather.
Yep.
I think the biggest thing is that if you don't, obviously, like your tax statement, there is a process for appeal.
If you don't like
and-
your valuation
Yep.
notice.
Yep. Sorry. And if you want to, you can go down that process,
Yep.
and as you say, you get. But I think the one thing is then, if you appeal, ultimately, you probably will have to let them into your house, obviously, to see what the condition is. So, and I mean, I've sat on the Board of Appeal, and as you say, some have gone up and some have gone down and some have remained the same.
Yep.
So, thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
Right, the next item on the agenda is the Fire Relief Association. Luke Draxton requested action of recommendation to the council to approve an increase in the service benefits for retiring paid on-call firefighters. So, good morning, Luke.
Yeah, good morning, Mayor, morning, council members. I believe you have the action recommendation in front of you in your packet. The city, or the Fire Department Relief Association, or first I'll back up. As Mayor said, my name is Luke Draxton. I'm on the Fire Department, and I'm the treasurer for the Relief Association. I think this is my 13th year coming here, following the same process, so I appreciate your time and appreciate the opportunity to do this. Again, our request is to adjust our per year service pension amount from $7,200 up to $8,600, following the parameters of our funded ratio. And what that asks is, the funded ratio is basically our liabilities as compared to our assets in our investment accounts. So the state guidelines recommend that you keep that ratio around 100%. We're currently sitting at 152%. Last year, at the end of the year of 12/31, we were at 154%. So that allows us to ask for an increase. The Yeah, as stated previously, the Minnesota state takes a position that a high funded ratio, shows that the intent of the pension funds are for retirees, and a high funded ratio could be shortchanging current members. So with our current funded ratio at 152% as of this last 12/31, our request is for a $1,400 increase from $7,200 up to $8,600. And I'd like to turn it over to you guys for questions.
Somebody care to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Laurel. Any questions of Luke?
Luke, I appreciate you being here. This is for upcoming retirees. This has nothing to do with past retirees. Is that correct?
Correct, yep. Our liabilities are just for those that are currently vested and deferred in a deferred status or future retirees. So those that have retired are off the books.
Any other questions?
Yeah, this increase is a one-time benefit, or is this an annual benefit?
So we look at we look at our per year service number annually and come to the city, and whether the request is an increase, a decrease, or to remain level happens annually. But it is a one-time. So for, say, somebody's been on the department for 10 years and it was $7,200 per year. Now if they're on for 10 years, it goes up to $8,600 per year.
And that's a one-time payment. That's where I'm trying, the $8,600.
Correct. It's $8,600 per year of service.
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Yep.
Correct.
And that's a one-time hit that these people get, or is that?
Yep. So upon
annuitized?
retirement, if the firefighter is vested and they retire, you have to be age 50 to request and have access to the pension, but it's a one-time lump sum payment to the firefighter.
Do they have an option to, if you will, spread that income over years, or do they have to take that hit tax-wise?
A couple of options. You can take it as a cash distribution, pay the tax on it there and have the federal tax withheld. You can annuitize it. They can have that option as well.
Yes.
Or else, more typically, we've got the lump sum rollover into an IRA,
Yeah.
but they have three options. But that's at the discretion of the retiree.
I'm all in favor. Thank you very much, sir.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, same sign. The motion is approved. Everybody good with it being on the consent agenda?
Yep.
Yep.
Now let's talk about it some more.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is deed of property located at 702 East Beach Avenue, Clara Beck. Recommended action is to the council to direct the mayor and city administrator to sign quitclaim deed to facilitate sale of property at 702 East Beach. Clara.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, everybody. This is a property that has been in front of you fairly recently. In November, you looked at this and approved an encroachment agreement. So at some time in the past, this roadway was expanded, and the house at 702 East Beach, I'll just note that in the header on the memo and then on the first agenda that went out, it said 720. It is 702 East Beach, the former Candy Bar building, so kind of an iconic building here in town. A corner of that, what is now private property, just a single-family home, does encroach on city right-of-way. So to clean that up back in November, because the current owners of that house are getting up in years, they're trying to downsize, they're trying to sell this home in order to retire, be in a different living situation. And so they requested an encroachment agreement. They have since gone through a process with lenders, title company, et cetera, and it turns out, in fact, the encroachment agreement does not check all the boxes that are necessary for a sale to occur. So in an effort to help facilitate this sale for these homeowners, the request is that the city deed the encroachment area to the homeowners. So what this does is it does not allow them to expand on the building in the future, to make any changes to it, to encroach further, but they can maintain what's currently there. They've also agreed that if any, maintenance or anything that occurs with the building, if it disrupts or interrupts in any way the city right-of-way, that it will be remedied. But essentially, the request is that we would deed over this 220 square feet corner of the property to them so that it can help facilitate a sale down the line for them. I'm happy to answer any questions. We've been working through this with various different parties and entities to try to get it to a place where everybody is happy, and I'm feeling very confident that we are there today.
Would somebody care to make that
make
motion?
a motion.
Thank you, Al.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions of Clara? Scott?
Would there be any advantage to having something in the agreement that says if the house is ever removed, that the property deeds back to the city? Or is
That
too much of a
was
tangle?
considered, that was part of an initial draft or round, and that was not agreeable to lenders. They did not want a clause in there where it, essentially we removed a reversion clause that would say that property goes back. So it would remain with the future homeowners.
When was this last reviewed? And was there title insurance then? Or is this something else that's happened?
Are you talking about the last time it was in front of council, or?
No, yeah, what, initially, we've had this issue forever. Why is it popping up now other than the sale? But
Just because of the sale. That's why it's popping up.
why didn't it pop up before, and was there title insurance on this property?
I'm not sure.
I don't know that title insurance would cover the encroachment. Title insurance is going to cover the deeded description in the title insurance, would be my understanding. So I don't think title insurance would necessarily cover what's in our right-of-way currently.
I'm in favor of this. I'm just trying to figure out where the hiccup was. So, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We're just here trying to fix it.
Any other questions? If not, roll call, please.
A
Motion. So all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
All those against, same sign. The motion is approved. Everybody good with the consent agenda?
Yep.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is City Code Amendment, recommendation to the city to direct the city attorney to amend City Code 121.17 to comply with state laws for low-dose hemp. And again, Clara Beck.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is a change that's been brought about by further changes at the state level. I'm not entirely sure when this language specifically was changed, but sometime between 2024, 2025. A definition changed, which now puts our code language that we adopted in 2025, I believe, slightly out of date. Initially, the definition of a cannabis business also included low-dose hemp edible sales. That is no longer the case. Those are regulated separately. Still under the State Office of Cannabis Management, that's where the licensing takes place for these low-dose items, beverages, edibles, the things that were legal before true cannabis became legal, the hemp-derived items is what we're discussing specifically. So in order to account for the fact that the state is regulating differently and the language has changed, I have put together an update to our city code. This also accounts for the fact that back in 2025, we removed Chapter 120, which was our previous chapter that was regulating low-dose hemp edible sales in the city of Fergus Falls. We got rid of that and rolled all of it into Chapter 121. And this is just, therefore, kind of expanding on what we had already done in 121 to better match the state process, but also just to better explain to our local businesses how they are regulated. So hopefully you will like what I have done because it's short. Cliff Note style, if you will, but we are going to change the definition of cannabis business. And what I've done is just taken out the words that we had previously that covered all kinds of different business styles, and we're directing to the state statute. So if the state statute is changing, then we are not coming back every year to change our code to match. We can simply say, please look at this subdivision of the state code. That is the definition of business that we're working with. Next, what I have done is added into ours. We have already a section in our city code, Chapter 121, on low potency hemp edibles, and I have updated that section to better fit what we need to be doing locally for our registration process and to, again, match what the state process is. So it's page 3 in your packet of this section lists out the language that I've included. we've already established a fee that is part of the application process, so that's referenced in there. We're also referencing the fact that sales cannot occur to anyone under 21 years of age. And then a lot of the language is actually just carried over from what we had previously about on-site consumption and sales in municipal liquor store, et cetera. So happy to answer any questions that you might have about that. Oh, sorry, one final thing. This was just a piece of cleanup based on changes we had made previously, but maybe just missed. In our B3 code language, in the zoning code, we still had a use that was for THC edible beverages sales. I'm removing that because we're regulating that zoning elsewhere. So that's just a little cleanup.
Would somebody care to make the motion?
I can make that. Okay.
Thank you, Jim. Would
I'll
somebody
second
care to
it.
second it?
I can.
Thank you, Laurel. Any questions of Clara?
Just one.
Go for it, Scott.
Among the red print on page 3 of your presentation, under 121.18 location, you use the phrase normal alcohol or tobacco establishment. And I think you could drop the word normal. I think that some people's version of what's normal and what's not is maybe a detail.
I can do that.
That would be all I've got. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? I think you also just reiterated that it's not transferable either. So,
Oh, yep, I do have that in there,
I think
registration.
which was another
not
thing that the
transferred.
council brought up. With that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, same sign. The motion is approved. Everybody good with that on the consent agenda?
Yeah.
All right. The next item on the agenda is the Heritage Preservation Commission grant application, again by Clara, looking for a recommendation to the council to direct staff to submit a grant application to the State Historic Preservation Office for up to $30,000 to support public education, outreach, and preparation of a draft nomination for a potential Fergus Falls Commercial Historic District. Over to Clara.
Thank you. This is a continuation of work that the Heritage Preservation Commission has been working on for the past at least 3 years, but it's been a conversation much longer than that. They've been interested in the development of a downtown historic district, and in 2023 and 2024, they worked with a firm who did some initial survey and study of the downtown area and helped determine a footprint for what could be a commercial historic district. With years of interest between 1880 and 1978. We are at a point in the process where the state, once again, has certified local government funds available to cities like Fergus Falls to apply for a grant that could help us into the next round of establishing or potentially establishing a district. And what we envision using the grant for this time around would be doing some public education and outreach surrounding what it means to have a historic district. So educating the downtown business owners on the pros and cons of what a district could look like or how they could access resources, et cetera. And then using a firm to take the work that had already been done by Pigeon Consulting back in 2023, 2024, and putting together an actual draft nomination form, which could, upon buy-in from our downtown business community, could then be moved on to the state level for a national register nomination. The full amount of the proposal is not to exceed $30,000. I think it's going to be less than that, but I'm still waiting on some numbers from some firms just to get an idea of exactly what we're working with.
Would somebody care to make that motion?
I'll make one.
Thank you, Scott. Would somebody care to second it?
I'll offer that.
Thank you, Laura. Any questions of Clara?
What other communities in our area have a downtown that is in this kind of registration right now?
Downtown historic districts. I'm not aware of any in Otter Tail County or this
Like, is
specific
Alec,
area.
I mean,
but
any of those, or are we talking more like the Red Wings of the world and Stillwater and things like that?
more along those lines. There are a fair number of them. I don't have the list in front of me, but in our vicinity, not many.
So-
or any.
I'm a proponent, and people probably know that, of property owners having the right to do kind of what they want to do. And there are grant monies that could be there and things like that for people once they're in this district. So there's advantages there, is my understanding. What are the disadvantages? Like, are we going to be limiting what people can do if such a business wants to do this or wants to do that? And if they can't get access to grant money, fixing these buildings, I mean, downtown property owners have a lot that they have to deal with their property and things like that, and a lot of small businesses, and we don't want to make things harder for anyone. And I don't think you do either. What are the drawbacks that we'll be talking about with these businesses that might make them nervous?
Yeah, I think people hear historic district and they think about working with SHPO, having to get all of any specific change that you're going to make to your building, getting that approved in a weeks-long process. That's not really what we're envisioning. A downtown historic district can be as prescriptive or non-prescriptive as really we would like. And that is something that can be determined in work with the HPC and the council to see, what are you guys comfortable with? What level of oversight are you comfortable with? I think our HPC would like some level of oversight similar to what we have now for any buildings or businesses that are currently designated either locally or nationally. Any building permits come before the HPC, and they just kind of give an okay, like a certificate of no change, or in instances in the past, they've made recommendations on materials that could be used, but it's not binding anybody to anything. It's more an opportunity to work together to come up with the best possible plan for a historic building. Any kind of regulation that would exist would likely be there in an effort to maintain the district as a whole. So you can have a district that has, like, for instance, the one that's been identified here, there are 69 properties that would make up the whole district, but only 65 of those are actually contributing. The rest of them are just part of the district. So you can have buildings that opt out. You can have businesses that are, just doing what they want to do, essentially. As long as they're still in some way contributing to the district, I think it would be fine. But that's a conversation that will kind of unfold as we start talking with business owners, see what is it that you guys really are looking for in a district or not looking for in a district, and we can tailor it to fit. I think you were also kind of hinting at, like, what resources could the city provide as part of a downtown historic district. And I will say right now, we have our BDFF loan pools. We have a facade loan program that several of our downtown business owners have already taken advantage of, where they can do upgrades to their building with a low interest loan. So that would continue to be available. There are opportunities for maybe growing or creating a new fund, maybe specific to downtown, because that fund is citywide, not necessarily just for downtown. But we have options for what we can do to make it a good fit locally.
So, obviously, a lot of the businesses don't necessarily own the building. So would we be reaching and getting comment from both?
Yeah, that's my vision anyway. Yep, we would be working with both the landlords and then the tenants, and obviously helping the landlords and tenants work together. You generally don't have tenants who are making changes without their landlord's buy-in.
Yeah. Any other questions? Mike?
Yeah, Your Honor, I appreciate it. Thank you, Ms. Beck. I appreciate it. What we're looking at here, though, and I want to make sure what we're just looking at today, is just to submit a grant application to SHPO for the $30,000, and that can be used for public education, outreach, and the possible preparation of a commercial district. Right? Just because we get the $30,000, or if you get whatever, doesn't mean we have to go full bore with that commercial district. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. Thanks.
Right. Any other questions? Scott?
Just another comment, I guess. The idea of a commercial historic district could be a real bonus if it was seen like we were another one of the Stillwaters or Red Wings, and if the city had the buy-in, as you were explaining. And yet, if the restrictions are such that, like what Laurel was expressing some concern about, that it costs us a lot, or costs individual businesses a lot, I can see where there'd be a lot of pushback. So since this doesn't cost us anything other than staff time, doing the research for it and finding out more information, I don't see how that hurts us in any way, and maybe helps us find out to what degree we've got that buy-in.
Yep, exactly.
From our local area. Because if there's a pretty high percentage of those who think this would be good, okay, we can keep moving, but if not, then it's over.
Yep, you've nailed it on the head. That's exactly what we want to do with this round, is try to see what is the interest level, does it change with education, is this the right direction for us to go? You know, our members of the HPC are excited to see if it's a good fit, but they will respond to what the businesses are telling them as well.
Your Honor, one other thing.
Yep.
I think it's important when we do the education, and I respect your ability to do this, and I know you can, that we're not pushing an agenda with it. I think we just really need to put facts out there, and so it doesn't look like the city is pushing this on anyone. We want to have a conversation at this stage.
Yep, absolutely.
And I know you're aware of that, and I just think that's a really important thing right now, so people feel like they can be honest and forthcoming.
Yep, for sure. And we will rely on rely on resources at the state level to come in and be kind of an impartial third party and talk to business owners about what it looks like to be part of a historic district, what they've seen in other places. So we'll be sure to get some real experts in who can help provide that insight.
Your Honor, just one more, Mrs. Mack. So we're just going for a grant here to do this. Let's say this grant doesn't come back and there's zero money there for it. Does the HPC still want to move forward maybe with looking at this in the future, or are they just going to let this drop if this grant doesn't come through?
No, I think we'd still have that study from 23-24 that they want to do something with eventually. So they would likely try to go for some different grant, but we definitely do want to do this round of outreach and research before we go further.
That all those in favor say
May
aye.
I have one, I'm sorry, can I go back to the very basics? What is the benefit of this program?
There are a few different benefits that are recognized. One of them is that it's kind of like a badge of honor to have a nationally registered historic district in your town that you can drive people toward from a tourism perspective. It also gives individual property owners in historic buildings a leg up toward nationally registering their businesses or their buildings themselves, which opens up funding opportunities.
And those fundings would be what?
There are state and federal programs that can be available to nationally registered buildings.
What, improvement fundings or?
It depends. In some cases, yes, they can be improvement funds. Otherwise, it can be interpretive funds, things like that.
And who's the benefactor of the 30,000 if we get the grant?
The city of Fergus Falls.
And those monies will be spent on with payroll
Nope.
or just direct advertising?
It would be for the grant activities. So you get a grant and you use the grant to pay for the grant activities. In this case, it would be education and outreach. So we'd be working with the State Historic Preservation Office and their officers who oversee the National Historic designation process at the state level. We'd also be working with a consulting firm who would be taking the survey results from 2023, 2024, interpreting those as part of that education and outreach process, and then developing a draft nomination form based on that initial research.
So the $30,000 is going to be spent on what? The contractor,
Sure, contractor and their deliverables.
And with that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, same sign. The motion is approved. Everybody good with the consent agenda? The next item is city security camera system. And Dan Knudsen and Bill Sommer, recommendation to the council to approve the purchase of a replacement security camera system.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, and council. The City of Fergus Falls, we have security cameras at various locations. I'll just breeze through what they are. We have them here at City Hall, the downtown liquor store, our shop area down at Public Works, the West Liquor Store, out at the ice arena, the library, the landfill, the aquatic center, and then the police department. So that's the locations we're talking about. We have currently owned our own system. We purchased that through Marco, correct, in the past? And we have our own recorders and everything. So we have a complete system right here. Dan Knudsen, our IT manager, has looked at updating that. We're having some cameras starting to fail and some of the recorders starting to fail. They're reaching the end of their useful life, 8 to 10 years, right? That's what we're looking at. Not all the cameras, of course, are failing right now, but we are starting to see that. So that's, prompting that. This estimated contract is more than $25,000, less than $175,000. So he went for quotes on this, is what he was looking at. So looked at the current vendor, Marco, and you can see that in your memo that we have a purchase and a lease option through Marco, and then we had that through Park Region as well, so a local vendor here. Cut to the chase on that. Dan is recommending, and I concur with him, that we go with our local vendor, Park Region, as that is the cheaper price, and we have, support right here in town for that. We're looking at purchasing straight out with Park Region. With the installation comes to a total cost of $45,735. And then there will be a $336 per month support fee for those cameras. So Park Region then would provide us that support. So that $45,000 purchase price compares against the Marco quote that would have been $84,840. So you can see why we're recommending Park Region. It's a no-brainer. It's good product for half the price. Their lease option through Marco would have been $134,000 over the 3 years, what that would have totaled. Again, a lot more than what we're talking here. What was looked at for leasing from Park Region would have been a couple of the recorders. We didn't have the option to lease all the cameras from Park Region. They just simply don't do that, but we can purchase through them. And we could have leased those recorders, but that would have been, I think, the purchase price is about $10,000 something on those. We would have wound up paying $14,000 over those 3 years for that. So certainly makes sense to save that $4,000 and include that in the purchase. So that's in that $45,000. With this, I'm also asking that you approve additional transfers from the liquor store of $5,668, the refuse fund for $515, the city shop $1,653. We're doing that because when we built the budget for 26, we put $25,000 in, a specific portion for part of the cameras here, and then we build in transfers. Well, this is higher than what we had built in for those transfers, and we don't want the general fund and the property tax levy to fund the cameras at the liquor store. That business should fund that. That's why I'm asking for those transfers to cover that price. And then, as a side note, at the community arena, we would be applying that cost against the arena capital funds that have been saved up through the user groups, and that amount was $8,462 about. And I did reach out to the user groups because within our contract, if we do an improvement, a replacement, a capital replacement over $7,500, we need to be informing them of that. So we did do that last week and let them know, and they're supportive of this. So am I missing anything, Dan? I don't think so. Okay. So we're looking for your approval of this purchase.
Would somebody care to make that motion? Thank you, Jim.
I'll second.
Thank you, Scott. And you have a question, Scott?
Is the system expandable? I mean, you listed off all the various places that we've got cameras. So let's say that we want to add another camera or make some changes. I'm assuming it's expandable, correct?
I'm assuming it is too. Dan? Yep.
Okay. Among the places that you listed, I didn't hear any for the RTC or for any of our parks. And maybe they're in there, maybe you just didn't mention it. Okay. Because I thought we had one.
Do we
at
have cameras at
Lake
the
Alice?
RTC that are separate from these systems? We did. They're not functioning anymore, so no, we do not have them there.
It seems like it would be helpful to have those working. But we've had vandalism at places in our parks, like Alice, for example, not in this winter, and up at the RTC and other places. So having some capacity to see those things on cameras. As you mentioned, the funding and stuff for it, I think it would also then fit, if you had additional cameras in those places, that it would then be funded through the park budget, not the general fund again. But that's just a suggestion as how to approach it. But I think this is a good place to start, but I think we ought to consider adding cameras in the parks and places like the RTC.
Laurel?
I agree. I was going to go the same direction as Scott. I think that with where the world is going in the world, I mean, I think having place in our park, Magnuson had significant damage done to it. I don't know if it was a year or two back, and they had to clean that up. I think looking at the parks is important. The other thing is I've had people that have downtown, that reside downtown in our city-owned lots. Like, when you look in some larger cities, they have like panic buttons in the parking lots where if there's a disturbance or something like that, there's a way to do a panic button. Is that something we want to look at all at any point? And could that be added to this system? And then also, do we feel like we have enough security in our liquor stores and things like that? Like, do those employees need panic fobs or anything of that nature?
The employees do have that at the liquor stores, so if something happens, they can alert that without anyone even knowing they're alerting it, so.
So just kind of along what Scott was saying, I think maybe looking at this in a bigger picture way, if we're going to do it, we should do it, I guess, and do it and get some recommendations from PD and things like that. And I think the RTC is a logical place to look at. And then I guess my other thought is the cameras up at the Aquatic Center are basically brand new. Do they have some value where we can surplus them, or is there anything we can do with these ones that are a year old?
Those are part of this, so they will stay.
Those will stay. It just says replace all, so I didn't know if we were replacing brand new ones or not. Okay.
Those were brand new last year.
So those are good to go. Okay.
Mark?
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Would you run it by me one more time slowly, because I can't type that fast? Where are these going? City Hall,
Okay, so City Hall,
liquor store,
downtown liquor store, and both liquor stores downtown and the west one.
yep,
Down at the shop,
yep,
and then the ice arena,
yep,
public library,
yep.
landfill,
Oh, yeah.
aquatic center, and then police department.
Well, they don't need it.
Ha.
They got guns. Thank you.
I think we had extensive discussion with the police department about the cameras, right? So probably part of the driving force here.
Number two, I wanted to express my sincere appreciation to you doing it locally. I'm not obviously the bid shouldn't have driven this, but it surely did.
Yeah, it's a win-win that way.
Very nice, thank you.
Your Honor, just 1 second. So I appreciate it, Mr. Sonmore. So are we going to run two systems here now? We're going to, is Marco the one that's up at the Aquatic Center, or what do we got?
It'll all be Park Region, won't it?
It'll be Park Region. They'll do it a building at a time over this year. Okay. So we will be running two side by side, the old one and the new one, as they go building to building and replace them. And all the old one was Marco, though, right? Is that correct? But you're converting something to make you be able to see it through Park Region.
Right.
Okay.
Recorder, there'll be a new recorder, new cameras. So
Okay.
every building gets new cameras. There'll be a central recorder
Okay.
at City Hall to record.
Is the aquatic center through Park Region now?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so there we are. So that makes
Yep.
sense with this then. Do we know, one of the things when you look at a bid, you get a little nervous. We see something at 80-some thousand, something at 45,000, and I'm not critiquing Park Region, but do we have the quality coming with these next cameras that we would have had with Marco and what we've had in the past? Are they up to snuff?
I believe they are. They're newer, right? The Marco stuff is old. Replacing with Marco is a commercial system. It's 5-year warranty on the cameras. They're definitely higher quality cameras because they have that extra warranty you're paying for. But they do things that we probably don't use and don't need. AI, for instance, if you need to watch someone with a red baseball cap and a gray shirt walking through a building, going from camera to camera, those kinds of things are there these days. But do we need that on the few cameras we have? Probably not. Park Region cameras are, I think, a year warranty on the cameras instead of the 5-year. But they're just as good of quality for viewing. I think the quality of those cameras is as good as anything else you buy out there. I don't see a problem with that. And the price of the cameras, if they do fail, is so low that they're easy to replace. So those are the trade-offs that we have between the price of those two systems.
Okay.
Police chief's got something to add.
Councilmember Mortensen, I can just comment a little bit. We have experience with those Park Region cameras at the Aquatic Center, and they're good cameras. So that was, as we kind of did this discussion, knowing that we had success with those kind of helped, move this forward. There's probably, I think that other vendor, there were travel costs probably, involved if they were coming out of St. Cloud. And so I'm sure that kind of drives it. And to just comment on the different cameras and everything, I mean, obviously the police department, the more cameras, the better, because they help solve crime, but it's also that cost-benefit analysis of, do we need, those panic stations like in a city parking lot? I think our response time is really good. People know that, to call, whereas some of those bigger cities, you just don't know what the response time is. So the goal is that the panic, the flashing lights and everything scares someone away because you don't know how long it's going to be for somebody to get there.
Will obviously cameras require a lot of storage. Is the program then going to override after kind of 14 days or 7 days, or are we going to store it forever?
45 days.
45 days. Thank you. So that should help, like if we need to investigate something, if somebody doesn't come forward in 45 days, we should be able to figure that out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Thank you.
Mr. Knudsen, at the same time, the drive can be added to it, couldn't it? If 45 days isn't been adequate?
Can certainly add space anytime,
Yep.
yes.
In our facilities, we found 45 days not to be long enough because 18 months later, someone comes and says, I slipped and fell. And I'm exaggerating at 18 months, but you get the idea. The slip and falls, who wrote the bad check, who drove by. Law enforcement's used our cameras many times. I'm going to start charging them, though, so you can tell them that. Thank you.
Right. With that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, same sign. Hearing none, the motion is approved. Everybody good on the consent agenda? And then I think if staff can look at kind of like what some of the extra things would cost above and beyond this down the road, that would be positive. The next item on the agenda is space lease for 921 Western Avenue. Obviously, the Bigwood Country Inn and Suites. Andrew Bremsteff, the recommendation to the council to approve the space lease agreement with the new owner of the Country Inn and Suites with the inclusion of in-kind promotion of the Bigwood Event Center. With that, over to Andrew.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, members. You have an updated memo on your desks this morning. And in the interest of time, I'll just quickly go through what's changed. I reached out to the new owner the day after the council meeting. They indicated a willingness to provide marketing where they are able. He did have some hesitation because with the brand standards related to the Country Inn and Suites, they're not allowed to do certain things such as the official website and some of those things. But as you'll see in your memo here, he is agreeable to utilizing hotel social media pages to reference the event center. He's willing to include the Bigwood Event Center in their Google marketing and online advertising campaigns that highlights the hotel's connection to and proximity to the event center, again, outside of the official website. He's committed to ongoing verbal and on-site promotion by his staff when engaging with group, corporate, and event-related guests. And then the other thing I added to the end of the memo was related to the snow removal and lawn care. I reached out to the broker the day after the council meeting as well. He was able to provide these from the existing owner. He did a query from April 1st of 25 to the day in which I reached out, and they had spent just north of $27,000 between the two contracts. This combined with the utilities that we mentioned last time brings them close to about $35,000 cash that they put forward as part of this lease, which is about $11 per square foot. And again, this does not account for anything related to the labor or supplies for cleaning the restroom or the facility and maintaining the space. And they also left off snow removal for the months of February or March, just the way they did their query. So I think we're in a good place here with getting to that square footage dollar amount that Mr. Layton referenced last council meeting. And then I'll just draw attention later in the packet, there's 2 changes that were made to the agreement. It's in yellow there. And I just added the language that says tenant must also advertise and promote the Bigwood Event Center as a convention center as often as possible while advertising the hotel, including but not limited to social media, Google advertising, and word of mouth. And then the only other change is related to who the agreement is with. Originally, he wanted to use his personal name, and now we've used the company name Shri Hari Inc., and that was due to lending requirements that he found as they got close to closing, which is scheduled for February 24th.
Would somebody care to make that motion? Thank you, Scott. Would somebody care to second it?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Laura. Any discussion? Mark?
Yes, I do appreciate you taking it under consideration. Again, my focus was to bring this to a full review. At the same time, though, I was only looking for $5,000-6,000, but some council people say it's just $5,000-6,000.
I won't get in the middle of that.
Your Honor, just one question. Mr. Bremseth, I
Yes.
appreciate you putting together the tenant must also advertise, do different things like that. One of the things, just when I look at that, just from my own personal business stuff, it says, and promote the Bigwood Event Center as a convention center as often as possible. And is that language just kind of thrown in there? Was that from Rolf or whatever? Because only reason I say that is when I look at a contract with that, that's not enforceable very well. Right. So I'm wondering if something else could be put in there, unless you've already checked with them, that's something like, the Bigwood Event Center as a convention center as a permanent marker while advertising the hotel. Something just that when we go to his sites and we look at it, the social medias and stuff, that, hey, it's always there. I'd hate to run in a situation where he says, well, we tried to get it on there, this or that. So what's your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Councilmember Mortensen, these are my words. We can certainly make that change. I think that's acceptable and probably makes more sense. The spirit of the language that I chose was just simply because of his uncertainty when I was speaking to him about what he could and couldn't do related to the brand. But, I think we can make it a little stronger so it's, permanently advertised in the ways that he can.
Yeah, no, I appreciate
Yep.
that. And it wasn't the intent to bust it up. I just,
Yep.
it was good, thanks.
Appreciate it.
Your Honor, one last, Anthony, is this a one-year deal, or I can't remember?
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Councilmember Layton. It is a 1-year deal, and then it's month to month after a year, and 60-day out clause at any time, including within the first year.
Yeah. So I understand giving this guy some breathing room the first year. I'm all in favor of it. We don't want to kill a deal, as I've heard, and I appreciate that. I respect the buyer and the seller. 1 year would be an opportunity for us to get the Bigwood under our belt and make a better arrangement with him.
With that, all those in
I
favor?
think-
There's one over here.
Laura, sorry.
I just, I think maybe a couple of questions for him or clarification on what can happen would be the, pre-arrival or group booking email mentions.
Yeah.
So can we be, part of any of those emails that go out?
I can ask, for sure.
And then opportunity to maybe market with inside their location, like in their rooms.
That probably will be prohibited by brand standards, but I'll ask that question.
Yeah.
Yep.
More visibility.
Can we, I guess the other question is, if they can't co-market us with a name, which I understand that Country Suites might have that regulation, but maybe on their website, can they say something as basic as adjoining meeting space and convention space available without drawing attention to another brand? Maybe there's a way to call out availability of space without naming it.
Possibly. I will say this. There's a little bit of a of a language barrier in terms of the communication. We were talking on the phone. He was very hesitant and very adamant that he cannot do anything directly related to the brand. I mean, that caused him great concern when I was suggesting some of those things. So, you know, he went as far as say, we don't want to kill this whole deal over this. And I said, oh, absolutely not. I'm just inquiring as to the ability that you have to partner on this. And so I can continue to ask those questions, but I don't want to get him outside of his comfort zone, because I could feel we were
his
getting
attorney
there.
that maybe doesn't have a language barrier. You know what I mean? Obviously, someone is reading this that probably doesn't have a language barrier, I would guess.
Yep.
And maybe we have that conversation. The other thought I had, kind of piggybacking off of what Laura said, was if we can work with tech, and we obviously would have to have staff available to answer these calls, but when a person calls the local number or the 800 number, have the ability to push a 3 and get transferred to convention booking. Like when I just called a Hilton in the Cities for a work thing, and you push 1 for reservations, 2 for the front desk, 3 for this, 4 for catering and event booking. Like, to me, that would be a logical thing to be able to look at.
Yeah, I'll have that conversation with him. I intend to meet with this individual face-to-face on Tuesday. So I'll be able to relay these questions and hopefully get a better understanding of how it might work. Maybe it'll be a little easier than on the phone.
Right. Thank you.
And maybe we have a better, signage up in that lobby area that, also there's one that sort of like shows general Fergus Falls, but maybe there's one that is more dedicated to, the convention center, and maybe he can put local amenities, link on his website, and that local amenities could fill out into more than, because obviously a lot of the hotels still say, like, there's a golf course, there's an aquatic center, and things like that, things to do in the community. So, Mike, you had a question?
Your Honor, I appreciate it. I think as a council member looking at this for Fergus Falls, my main goal is just to get a good agreement in with him. And then I think that's where the needs are. We need to have this. And then I think there's a lot of wants that can go on top of this, put a thing here, a thing there, and I think those are appropriate. Those are things that I look at more of what Visit Fergus Falls does, or somebody else other than the council making every little thing, and I may be wrong, but I think if we can get this just locked in with him, then get with Visit Fergus Falls, maybe the mayor in with that, and I think that's where I'd like to go, get this done.
I agree.
Your Honor, I agree 100%. We need to get this sale done.
Yep.
And Anthony and I are meeting with Visit Fergus Falls today, and that's part of our conversation of the convention center. So I think nitpicking this little thing right now is not where we want to be. I think we want to move ahead with this and get this thing done. We don't want to look like we're going to hold it up because you're not going to put something on the wall or put something on their Google page or whatever. So
Do we
I'm
have
definitely
the
for
right to put something on the wall in this agreement? Like, do we have that right, or to put on the back of the bathroom stalls, or do we need to call that out?
No, we can do whatever we want within our own space. Yeah.
With that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, same sign. Motion is approved. Everybody good with the consent agenda? Good. The next item on the agenda was lease versus cash for the street sweeper analysis. As many of you recall, Councilmember Layton obviously asked about lease and over a cash purchase, and said that we were giving away $50,000 by doing cash over lease, and the next day, obviously, the next morning, I got up early personally and looked at the analysis of how much interest we would get on a 5-year, depreciating the loan balance from 275 down to 0 over 5 years, and using, obviously, the standardizing the numbers. Mark had talked about 3.75 and the 5.05%, and when you did 3.75, then you ended up with about $25,000 of interest, and we were paying about $36,000 in the lease. So, the current interest rate that is being charged by or given by Bell Bank at the moment is about 3%. The new Fed chair that will take take place shortly in May. His mandate is to cut interest rates. So, I feel that we would be locking in at obviously at 5.05%, and the best case scenario would be probably 3% going forward, which makes the delta even bigger. So I think equally, we had numerous emails backwards and forwards. The city finance director also did the same calculation and came up with something very similar. And his was kind of, I think, $14,809. So I think that would have been if we'd done this on a lease, it would have cost the residents more or less about $15,000 to do this. And I think it's important to look at. It's important that we look at leases, but what we have done is we've levied the people of Fergus Falls, the residents, to put the cash in the bank. And now we're not using that cash for its intended purpose. If we don't buy a machine, we're then going to lease it. So we would, it would obviously save us money and put money in the bank, as it were, and we would keep the cash. But I think if we're going to go, I think it's a philosophy change if we're going to go down into leasing things as opposed to cash buying. And I think that's a different discussion that we should have is, is our intention that going forward we want to lease everything rather than pay cash for it. But we shouldn't collect the cash and then not use it for the intended purpose, which was to buy machines or equipment. And so this was just to clarify that, in different analysis you can come up with different things. And obviously, as Mark's often refers to, we can make numbers do whatever we want them to do. But there is obviously Mark's calculation in there as well as to how he derives it, obviously the numbers. But I just wanted to clarify that, in my opinion and in the city's finance directors, and also Bill reached out to a third party that was independent, our analysis was all very similar, that we came up with between a $10,000 and $15,000 cost to the citizens if we leased over cash purchase, as well as if we go outside of the city, we have to do the equivalent of like bonding, which would have cost us about $10,000. So we feel that the decision that the council made was, on the evening was the right decision. Bill, have you got anything to add?
No, I think you gave a good summary.
Thank you. Mark, have you got anything to add?
I'd love to, thank you. I appreciate the extra time. Councilman Mortensen has always said, we've come a long ways. We are now having a conversation. My understanding of the budget was simply money in the bank is earning interest. And yes, we can play with interest rates. I just chose 375. We know what the lease payment is, at 505. I knew exactly where you were going after the last meeting where, okay, we have just a bucket of $275,000 and we're going to spend that money down every month. That wasn't my interpretation. My interpretation is no different than any other large purchase that is bonded or leased. That money's funded from the levy. So if we write a check, the money's gone. If we lease it, the money's there. Bill, when we set the budget and we have a bond obligation, that payment comes out of the levy, correct?
This is where governmental accounting gets fun. Yes, when we're bonding, it is. So for instance, we did Junius, and we issued a bond for that, for the street portion. And yes, we levy each year to pay that bond back. So that's a different scenario than the equipment, because the equipment fund, we run all these funds as separate businesses. So they are their own buckets, because, so in the equipment fund, that's run like a private business. So if you were to lease it and make those payments out of there, you're actually writing that check out of the checkbook of that equipment fund each month. Where the levy comes in is where police department, the squad cars are all in the equipment fund, and then we have equipment rent in those individual departments. So those departments pay the equipment fund, it gets expensed every month. That's internal between the funds. The levy comes in then to fund the police department, which then goes over to the equipment fund.
Yep.
But all funds of the city are commingled into one checking account. So when you write that check out every month, it does bring that balance down every month.
And I understand that. I know
Sure.
where you're going.
Yeah.
It's not just a bucket of $275,000 sitting here for that piece of equipment that we're spending down. And I can appreciate the motivations of declining interest rates. So day one, I looked at it as the money coming out of the levy, so much a month, out of the street fund in this particular case. It wasn't a police department. It wasn't a new till at the liquor store. I still, very complicated. I still see this with the money in the bank. You're going to earn more than what it's going to cost you. And if it doesn't earn more, when interest rates go down, you're still an opportunity cost gain. Because the money is in the bank.
But it is going down every month. It
Correct.
truly is, yeah.
Yes. But if you were to amortize that down without graphics, Mr. Hicks, it's very difficult to understand. There is a break-even point. If you wanted to take that analysis, you could basically lease it for so many months, and then at the fourth year, wherever it busts, pay it off. So I just assumed a quick, down and dirty, money in the bank versus a lease would be understood. If you want to split hairs with a declining balance, it gets a little bit more complicated. We could take it more complicated and compound the interest rates. And then again, we haven't even considered leasing and then blowing it up at month 35 or wherever it starts costing money. So, secondly, appreciate this opportunity to talk about this. I'm still a proponent of the warranty. I've heard council people say that, well, that last sweeper we talked about was supposed to be a really good deal. We found out later that it's not really a good deal. How do we know this one's going to be a really good deal? For 11 grand, to take it out 5 years, do the math, it's not that bad if you got $170,000 worth of repair bills on it. So I'll let the council decide that. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss this. I'll lose the $6,000 bet today. We at least had the conversation and reconsider the warranty.
Right. Thank you, Bob.
Your Honor, Mr. Sonmore, just a question for you. So give me again where the 275 is. What's the bucket? What's it called?
The equipment fund. It's
Okay.
our fund number 704.
Okay. And how did that money get into that equipment fund?
It comes in from the other departments. So we charge that rent interdepartmental it is. So you levy here or LGA, or if it's in the sewer fund, through the utility bills, that money comes into those funds. They rent that equipment, and it's not just depreciation, it's all the maintenance, the fuel, everything is covered in that rent. So that goes into that equipment fund, and then you use that to purchase your equipment to maintain it.
Is there going to be any money coming into that equipment fund over the course of the next 5 years while we have this piece of equipment?
Are we going to have money coming in there? Every month.
Every month?
Yep, every month.
Okay.
And so you know how I've talked like all the enterprise funds, how we project out 10 years? We do the same with the equipment fund of, okay, what are the equipment needs that Guy and Dan Gaines are coming up with, what's our replacement schedule, and we build that out.
Yeah.
Now, we don't keep a large cash balance in that fund. It's maybe around 2.5 million right now.
Yeah.
With that actually probably going down some as we go, I would never want to drop below, say, 1.2 to 1.5 million in that fund.
Yeah, but there's money coming into that fund every month.
Correct.
That will take that amount for that sweeper. Let's just say you were there. Let's say you paid $5,000 a month in a payment, right?
Yep,
Maybe 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 comes back in there every month. Is that correct?
correct.
So to look at this from the basis of how you looked at it, which isn't wrong, but you're looking at it, I'm going to take 5,000, 5,000, 245, 240, 230, 225. That's not accurate. That's not what's happening here for the city. And I'm not saying it's wrong to look at it that way, but it is wrong when you look at it from the money standpoint. It doesn't quite equate. So to just say so simply that, hey, we would cost us a lot of money to do this just flat out, that doesn't quite look at the way we were looking at this or the way I was looking at it. You'd never, ever lease something at 5.0% and only get 3.75% in interest back and do that. You're never going to gain. You'll never get there. There's no way. It'll always be a loss for you. But if you had other money coming in from another source and you went and borrowed some money and you were able to maintain that amount in there of the 275 or close to it, that interest will rise to where Mr. Layton says it'll rise. And that's what's done in business all the time. It's just, it's difficult for government to look at it and see it, but I see the way that you put it out there, and it wasn't totally accurate in the way that I think it would have worked out. But I'm going to vote to just buy it outright, just because it's easier for the council and the city and different things that we do, and I think it's easier for the manager that came up and spoke that day. But I just wanted to let the public know that there is money coming into that fund.
There is no action to take today. This is just discussion.
Oh, okay, good.
So, Mayor, if I could take I'll take 30 seconds, because this I want to bring back to a future committee meeting, is I want to go through our purchasing policy with the council and say, do you agree with how this purchasing policy is laid out? What we currently do, we go along with Minnesota statutes. So from 0 to 25,000 is called an open market purchase. You can just go purchase those things. You don't have to get quotes. From 25 to 175, you get 2 quotes at least, keep them on file, and then over 175, it goes through the sealed bid process. Now, our policy, how it follows that, is that departments in the approved budget have the authority to purchase equipment up to that 175, or equipment or purchases, whatever it may be, if it's in the budget. Okay, and then if it's over 175, we come to the council and say, authorize going for bids, and we go out for bids. So I want to review that with you to see, are you comfortable with that? And in particular in the equipment fund, because if you want to get technical about that, and of course we like to drill in, there is not a budget line item that says equipment purchases, because again, it's run like a private business. So when you purchase those, they go on as an asset, not as an expense, and then they're depreciated over the life. So we've always said, okay, we're planning to purchase $1 million of equipment this year, and we allow Dan Gaines to go run with that, because things change, on the fly sometimes. Like, okay, we were going to do this piece of equipment. You know what? This need came up. So long story short, I want to come back to you with that policy and go through that with you and get your opinions of, are you comfortable the way we have been operating, and do we continue that? Or do you want something with the budget process where it's exactly these pieces of equipment we know, and I don't want you to deviate from that schedule without coming to us? Or does Dan have the ability to deviate and move it around, as long as he is staying within the planned, say, $1 million, for example? So not a discussion for today, but I want to come back and have that discussion with you. So,
In closing, sir, thank you, Bill. I still stand that the money's in the bank. As Mr. Mortensen's kind of reiterated, that 275 is going to be there for the next 5 years, or so close to it, because again, we are making those fund arrangements. I think cash in the bank for a city, and you've done a very good job of maintaining those cash levels is important. If you wanted to look at every piece of equipment that the city owns and you think our reserves are adequate, that's not true. So,
There's more needs out there than what we've, I mean,
so yes,
yeah.
we lease it, the money's in the bank, earning 3%, I don't care, it's earning something. If we're gonna spend 5 and we earn 30, that's only costing us 2, it doesn't cost us 5. We leave the money in the bank, and this, every month, that fund goes up, but it also goes down, so.
And I think that's where, on that purchasing, kind of bringing it back, we should look at then whether the philosophy going forward is to lease or cash, because then that affects the taxpayer, because at the end of the day, you know, we're collecting tax levy dollars that go to public works and that then get technically transferred to equipment fund. And so we're double dipping in the way that we look at it today. So I think that's the philosophical thing that we have to say, are we going to maintain a fund balance in the equipment of X? And then are we going to lease equipment going forward rather than, because today we collected the money from the taxpayer already, and we're not going to, theoretically, we're going to spend it on a piece of equipment. If we want to go down the leasing avenue as a philosophy, I think that's fine, we can do that, but that should be a broader discussion than double dipping on, because we've already collected that tax, and we shouldn't be doing that twice as such. And obviously, we can argue about it
Oh, yeah,
all day.
and I appreciate everybody's point of view, and again, to balance with Mr. Mortensen,
Yep.
we have had a discussion
Yep.
before there was no discussion. Thank you.
One
so
last
much.
comment, Laurel, and then we move on.
I guess
'cause-
I agree with what you're saying, because in my mind, if we're going to take the money to earn interest on it, I would rather leave that money with the taxpayer and let them earn the interest.
Yeah.
I mean, it just feels kind of wrong that we're going to take it to earn interest versus what the taxpayer thinks we're doing with it. To me, let the landowner keep that money until we need it.
Yep. So, we have one last item on the agenda, the remote attendance policy. As we've all seen, obviously circumstances happen and people can't physically make council meetings in person, and the state is now allowing us the opportunity to log in remotely and virtually. And at the retreat, obviously, we discussed a policy, and Andrew has pushed this out to people. There was obviously good discussion and dialogue about this. So over with that, we would obviously like to get the policy adopted so it can go on the council meeting agenda on Tuesday evening. Andrew, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. You did a good job of summarizing. There's 3 things that need to happen to be able to be allowed to attend remotely. One, all participants, including the public, must be able to see and hear the member that's participating. There must be at least one member physically present in the room, and then all votes have to be conducted by roll call. So even on motions, you're going to be doing roll calls to ensure that we adequately reflect the record. However, we are looking at recommending, based on feedback from the retreat, that our local policy includes the following: that the policy shall apply to city council and committee of the whole meetings, not closed sessions. The policy does not apply to city boards and commissions, meaning the right is only with the council. Council members may attend up to 6 meetings per calendar year remotely with at least 3 days advance notice, and that's 6 total, so it could be 3 committee, 3 council, 2 and 4. All 6 could be council meetings, what have you. There must be at least 5 council members, a quorum, physically present in the meeting, or in the room of the meeting, so in this room when we have a meeting. If we drop below that number, then we run into quorum challenges. So we want to ensure that if technology fails for the people that are on there, we still have a quorum in the room to conduct business. And then finally, remote access will be possible with advance notice on a first come, first served basis. I don't anticipate there'll ever be a time where there's 5 members that need to use it, but if there is, the first 4 that make arrangements are allowed to do it, and the 5th one's going to have to figure out a way to get into the room so we can actually conduct our meeting. Yeah, so, well, I won't share what people's plans are to be gone for safety reasons, but we have a member that'll be gone at the next council meeting and for a few council meetings, and they've requested to be able to do this. And then we've got a request from another council member related to Tuesday night specifically. So if you all are okay with it, I think we approve it today. We'll also put it on the consent agenda, assuming you're okay with it, on Tuesday, but I would like it to go into play right now so we can have the guinea pigs on Tuesday night.
And I think if somebody would like to make the motion.
I'll make the
Thank you, Scott. Would somebody care to second it?
I'll second. I have a
Thank you,
question.
Scott. Scott, you have a question?
Yeah, a couple of things as far as the details of this. I think going forward with this now is fine. One question would be regarding the advance notice. I can see it would be an advantage to be able to know ahead of time who's going to be gone or not, and I'm wondering if that is a specific, statute requirement or anything to do with the notification of a meeting happening that we have to be able to say, so many, or can it just happen at the moment? Is that a requirement?
Not a legal requirement. It could happen 10 minutes before the meeting. It was the thought process behind this, and I'll let the mayor speak to this because I know he felt strongly about that, is to ensure that we can give the public notice, but also to ensure that we have a quorum so we can conduct business. So
Okay.
I mean, obviously, I think if there was an illness or, something dramatic like that, then obviously we would be accommodating. But I think if, and like Andrew said, I don't think we're envisaging that there's going to be 3 or 4 council members all wanting to do this on the same day. But it was more, and I think, the other thing in this was obviously we said that we would review it in a year as well to kind of see what worked, what didn't work. But, if we're going to be fair to the public, it's nice for the public to know that who is physically going to be in the room and who is not going to be in the room. And obviously, Councilmember Mortensen, we used it once already, and it didn't seem to work so badly. And we do have to state prior to each meeting who is remote. That is a requirement of the law.
And then in the minutes for the meeting, we have to indicate the reason for the absence. So it could be a work commitment, it could be travel, it could be physical illness.
Generic.
Couple of questions. Is there a way to change the wording, recognizing we're willing to work with people under illness or emergency, to say something about in the event of an illness or an emergency by 10 a.m. the day of the meeting, to be able to, at least that way the public, if we do honor an illness or an emergency, understands that, would be one question. The next question is, are we requiring the person presiding over the meeting to be present, or can the person presiding be not present? And then the other is do we have tech in this room that can allow everyone, we've had tech issues, and we've been told tech upgrades are expensive, which they are. Can we actually make this work technology-wise?
Okay, so you have 3 questions in there. I'll try to answer all 3 of them. Your Honor, Councilmember Kildy. I'm already losing them.
First one is illness or emergency
Yeah.
by like 10 a.m. that day.
That's up to the council. We can certainly accommodate that if that's the desire of the council. So I'll kind of push that back on you. The second question is related to who's running the meeting or conducting the meeting. My suggestion would be we require that person to be in the room. So it'd be our mayor and our acting mayor. One of the 2 needs to be here at all times is what I would suggest. Because it would be real complicated to have the person calling for, the role and trying to call on members on the screen, because there'll be probably a small delay in, who's trying to get recognized to speak, and that could be chaotic. And then the final question, I'll defer to our IT professional here, whether or not we can handle the capacity related to multiple people it's going to be a Zoom call, because that works better in this room.
Yeah, a Zoom call, I mean, you can have as many folks on there as you like. The trick is to take turns, right? When you're talking, and as long as that happens, you shouldn't have any difficulty.
I guess to me, I would look at if the council's open to the illness or emergency change, and then I think we should insert in the policy that the person presiding will be in the room.
And I would agree with Andrew. I don't think you can run a meeting remotely. If everybody was remote, it would be one thing. But I think out of the retreat, it felt that you needed a physical presence of a big enough body that the citizens can see that we're here doing the job that we're elected to do.
Your Honor, just a second. Just after, being someone that utilized it here just in the last month or so, it works very well. The only real drawback is there's a little bit of a delay on your end, and you can't quite hear the voting perfectly when you're sitting there, so there's a little delay. But the other thing that's really trying for being on the screen is we take like a citizen or an employee in the seats there. You can't hear him now. I wouldn't be able to hear anything you said today or anything else. So there's parts of the meeting that are left out. So I think almost if we do this and someone's on the screen, they've got to come to the podium to be able to do it. One last question, Mr. Bremseth, and I appreciate this. You say in here not closed meetings as number one, and then later on you have something in here with two asterisks on it that says if remote attendance is allowed at closed meetings. With where are we at? Are we going to look at it based by case by case or no allowance? Because we had a closed meeting that night and I wasn't able to attend where it was. So.
Yeah, so Your Honor, Councilmember Mortensen, this is a victim of sequencing here because the policy was drafted prior to the retreat. Since the retreat, we've gotten additional guidance, so this will come out of the policy. So it will not be allowed for closed meetings. So we'll remove that section altogether.
And I think, Scott?
One other minor detail in the procedures is the requirement to test the technology an hour in advance of the meeting. That might work on a Monday night meeting, but on a Wednesday morning committee of the whole.
I'm not coming in for that.
I don't know that that's going to work. So maybe that language just needs to be removed and you test it before the meeting, but I don't know that 1 hour is practical.
Yeah, I think the intent, thank you, Councilmember Kwame, good point. I think the intent there was just that we were thinking of council nights 30 minutes before the meeting. It's kind of a mad scramble to get everything, and get everybody situated and get them in the right places. And so we wanted to just make sure that it's not like 30 minutes before we get a call and we are scrambling to try to figure out technology when we have a million other things happening. So just asking for some flexibility and ensuring that if you do utilize this, that you give us at least an hour, a few hour notice so we can make sure that things are going to work.
I think, Mr. Bremseth, the big key was, for a council member, is an hour before, make sure that invite has come from Lynn. Make sure it's come from her so you have it in your inbox. Because that was the biggest thing for me. Is it in my inbox? Am I ready to go? And she had it there in plenty time. And if that's not there within an hour, I think then that's a cause for checking on stuff.
Yep.
The other one that we probably should is are we going to adopt the same policy for the Port Authority?
That's what I was just going to ask.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I won't
And
speak to
that'll
that,
be-
Your Honor.
Right, we'll have to review that at our next meeting.
Yep. I just don't want to hold up business stuff.
You mentioned less chaotic. Absolutely impossible.
I reserve comment. No, I'm
Right,
teasing.
with that, all those in
So are we amending it to those different changes, or what are we voting on?
I think there was an amendment for adding the illness, the emergency, a person obviously in the room, whoever's prescribing would be in the room, removal of the two asterisks in remote, and that was.
And then removing the hour.
Right, removing the hour.
And moving the hour, so. So, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, same sign. The motion is approved. Thank you. Everybody good on consent agenda?
Yep.
Yep. The next, we're going to do, on Monday evening, or Tuesday evening, we'll do a quick review of highlights from the retreat for the public. And obviously, Monday 16th, most city offices and facilities will be closed for observation of President's Day. And so, as seems to have been a regular thing, garbage and recycling picked up on Monday will be moved to Tuesdays. Tuesday will be picked up on Wednesday. Tuesday, the 17th, 5:30 will be a council meeting, and February 25th at 7 o'clock is the next committee of the whole. With that,
Mr. Mayor, may I say one thing? Has there been any update with the water situation at Harbor Freight and Dollar Store?
I think that we have a notice out to them regarding that, and the county is working on it.
Communication today with the owner? Correct. We anticipate communication between the fire department and the owner of the mall today.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
With that, we are adjourned.